seizing land. That was in 2000. Well, as I mentioned earlier, what does it feel like to have had the same president for 37 years? Well, I cannot answer that question, but joining me in studio are two gentlemen who can. I am joined by, let me start from the far right, Ashley Honzeri, a social activist among many other titles. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And right next to us, Reginald Kazutu, an economy and strategy analyst. Welcome to the program as well, Reginald.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. So, how does it feel to have had the same president for 37 years? Ashley, let me start with you.
Well, it was, I was actually born in '87, so he's the only president I've known ever since I was born. And I had given up on the change. I never knew that this would happen. So when it did happen, actually, it was like a life-changing moment, I should say.
For Kenyans who may not have had a chance to go to Zimbabwe to visit, what did it feel like to live under Mugabe's rule?
Well, you think that, you know that there are things you can discuss and talk about. Politics was not one of them. So it was just an area which was not reserved for a few, and you could do anything else in Zimbabwe.
So what did you do? You'd whisper in your houses if you wanted to talk about politics, like pull someone to the side.
Exactly. Even the walls had ears, so you had to make sure that when you're talking about politics, you check who's next to you. That's how difficult it was.
Reginald, was that the same experience for you?
I was born a bit earlier, so I've seen two presidents in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Robert Mugabe, when he started, he was a prime minister. The first president of Zimbabwe actually is called Comrade Kenan Banana. Then Mugabe came in. So the notion of that...
people have forgotten about the first president.
Yeah, so the notion that Zimbabwe has had one president since independence is actually not correct.
Okay. So this will be your third president that will be sworn in on Friday.
This will be my third president. Though yes, the duration of the state makes you forget that there was actually another president before him, who actually ruled for 7 years. Living under Mugabe, yes, I think, you know, when a nation is economically stable and socially you're feeling that you're all being treated well in terms of access to quality education, whether it's a public school or a private school, access to water, health, and all those things, politics really takes a back row. So personally, myself, I think we started talking about politics when we were reaching the year 2000, when things started going a bit haywire.
Okay.
But before that, we really didn't care who was leading us. As long as there was equity and justice around, people really didn't care. But when things started turning around and people started thinking, no, these guys are eating more than the rest of us. Quality of education is deteriorating, quality of health, we're having power cuts, we're having water cuts. People started wondering, what's going on? That's when you realize, oh, we have a president and he's been here for like 12, 14 years. That's when it like hits you. So it was interesting. Politics was not part of our lives, but when it did become part of our lives, it came in a very hard way.
Well, clearly you are disturbed by the leadership for a long time. Why did it take so long, however, to oust him? You've seen in Kenya, the agitation is always, I mean, we give our leaders a year, 100 days maximum, and then we start crying out for change. Why was Zimbabweans so patient with him?
Like what I said, economically, socially, and all, we were okay until the 2000s. Until Zimbabwe went into DRC.
But you give him another 17 years, free of charge.
No, not free of charge. It cost us a lot. It costs millions of Zimbabweans leaving their country. Some educated, going to do minimal work in Europe, in
wherever
South Africa.
They can get jobs.
Yeah, you have doctors in South Africa doing restaurant work, they're waiters and the like. So it came at a huge cost. They've managed to build a system. ZANU-PF is a system, and Mugabe personified that system, and him personifying that system made people inside the system scared of him. And you cannot defeat a system by individual people. So the Zimbabwean people came together, definitely with the help of the West, with Project Changirai and the MDC, and they built a counter system that was supposed to defeat the first system.
Yes.
So they actually were able to do that. Was it 2002? Yeah, 2002 elections, when Changirai actually beat Mugabe, but he didn't get 50+1. But the truth is that he actually got 50+1. So he stayed that long because we were not able to fight the system, with the system, and we were not able to deal with electoral fraud. Because that's how he managed now to stay post-2000.
Wow. Actually, I'm coming to you, but first we have some images from what it has been like for Zimbabwe over the last couple of days. We can run those now. A lot of celebration on the roads, on the streets, even online as well. Actually, let me come to you as well, even asking you the same question. But I'd also like to ask, are there, and I guess Reginald has talked a bit about this, happy memories from the regime of Mugabe? Any fond moments?
Well,
or you have to think about it.
Yeah, you really have to dig deep to find some very happy moments. But I think we had some structures in place which made us a different kind of a nation. I remember my days in school. I have good memories of my days in school, and traveling, going around the world, you see other schools and you feel like, oh, what we had was actually very good.
Okay. And
you'd respect your teachers, you know, you'd respect the education system, you'd always try to compare it with the others. That was quite good. You'd go to the village. We Zimbabweans have a culture of going to the village, like Kenyans here too. And I remember my memories of the village. They were beautiful memories. You'd travel to the village for holidays, see your relatives and all that. But like Reggie said, things changed when you started having all these problems.
Okay.
You start asking questions.
So if the problems hadn't happened, Zimbabweans would have been a bit more patient with him because life was okay from their viewpoint.
Yeah, I think so. I think without all those issues, the economic crisis that we saw, I don't think many people would have asked many questions because we had such a long time and no questions were asked, but no power, no water, no fuel, and you saw what happened in 2008. Things, I mean, everything just halted. There was no movement. We didn't have fuel in the country, food, etc. And that is what really made people wake up. But let me add that this recent event, the people really didn't remove him. I don't think it's right to say that the people removed him. The army moved in, and people tried to rally behind the army. But, I mean, it's becoming more and more apparent that the movement that saw Mugabe's exit did not really come from the people, and
okay.
we are most likely going to slide back into the same system.
Yes, that is what you see.
Yes, that's what I see, and people are becoming more and more worried because we had more or less a cult created under Mugabe, and you saw the reception of the vice president. The things that were happening there, it's like people are creating another cult
around him. Because he's the savior, the nation. And it's funny you brought that because I want to read a tweet by a journalist, and Reginald, you can respond to this. Someone tweeted, lessons from, actually, Nanjala Nyabola, writer, journalist, tweeted, lessons for Zimbabwe from Kenya. Getting rid of the man is just the beginning. Getting rid of attitudes, structures, powers that kept him there for so long is the real battle. But for today, celebrate. You've earned it. Do you agree with that tweet?
Yes, I completely agree with it. Removing Mugabe is a psychological battle that has been won by Zimbabweans. A psychological battle that opens people's minds that it is possible to actually stand and remove your leaders. Like what Ashley said, what happened in Zimbabwe, the military was correct to say it was not a coup. Because they did not forcibly remove Mugabe, they replaced him with Mnangagwa in the same system. My own view is that Grace Mugabe was trying to fight the system with a younger generation, which they call the Group of 40. And the system realized if she ascends to power, that's the end of the system. And the system literally fought back. Mugabe was feared because of his control of the military. Now Mnangagwa controls the military. It is easy to remove a person, which is Mugabe. That was easy for everyone to go into the streets and say we're not going anywhere until he goes, because the military was on the people's side, not really on the people's side, but pacified. But now you have a leader called Mnangagwa who's coming in, and the question is, he has military backing. Are we able going to go into the street to say, your time is up, go away? Will the military escort us the same way they were escorting us when we wanted to remove Mugabe? I really doubt. And his speech yesterday,
yes, I was about to ask about that. Go ahead.
If he was really a nationalist, he would not have gone to ZANU-PF headquarters to make his welcoming speech. He would have done it in a neutral vein. And one of his statements that he made, just to translate in Shona, when he was saying Pamberine ZANU, which means forward ZANU, and he says people will continue backing on the sides as ZANU-PF continues to rule.
Wow.
And for me, that was just the hint of the system is still intact. So for Zimbabweans, yes, we must celebrate for now. And we have two options. And one option I'll give the people in Zimbabwe is, and if my wife would let me go back home, I would go back home, is...
That was actually going to be one of my questions.
Don't leave the streets now.
Stay on the streets.
Because you still have enough international media on you. Mnangagwa still wants to pacify international players and partners. So stay in the streets and demand to make sure that everything is in place for elections in April 2018, not to try and go back into the streets when he has been sworn in. That is not going to work. Or number two, we pray and hope that he is not cut from the same cloth as Mugabe, and he will actually stand for the people and for equity, justice, and fairness in the country.
Mugabe was actually quoted yesterday as saying that we now have a full democracy in Zimbabwe. Is he correct to say that? You agree with him?
I can agree with him a little bit, but we remain hopeful. I mean, we don't know what's in store for us. There are people who are positive, who are looking at him as someone who's going to be good for the economy. And remember that with the former president, we had sunk so low, we couldn't go any lower than that. So people are saying that maybe this new government may be different, and they will probably respect industry, they will respect the economy, and they will try by all means to boost the economy so that we have something which is different from what was there before. And I think he will try to impress people. He will try to do things so that people love him. Already you know his nickname, the Crocodile, which is not a very good nickname. And
it's because of how he handles his political opposition?
Maybe one because of that, but I hear that he was part of a group called the Crocodile Gang in 1960 that took out a train during the War of Liberation.
Wow.
And that
what a history, yeah?
That gang, Crocodile Gang, actually, that's where he got his name. And after that, he was in prison for 10 years. That's where he met Mugabe in prison. So some people say that maybe he has a crocodile smile, but his heart is different. But we remain hopeful. Yeah.
Oh, Reggie, what next for Mugabe? I know you don't know what his plans are, but what would you like to see him getting up to? Do you want him to stay in Zimbabwe?
I think I've been asked that question many times. I've been asked, but he used to support Mugabe, and I keep on telling people, I supported the flag. He was the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe. I would have defended him in my life. Now that he is the former president of Zimbabwe, I owe no loyalty to him whatsoever. So whatever he's going to do with the millions that he has stolen, I hope he doesn't choke on them and die. But I wish him peace. For the sake of that, the next person will know that I can leave power and still remain peaceful. I won't be hounded down. So I hope they allow him to stay in his palace in Borodale or
Blue Roof.
A majestic place built with our taxes and our money. Or if he decides to go to Singapore or South Africa, well, his wife determines where he's going to go, but she made enemies too many places.
Okay.
I think the safest place for us is to just stay in that blue roof and all. So we wish him well, so that the next person knows that you can actually leave power and still be safe and not try to cling on to power.
Okay. Actually, tell us a little bit about Gucci Grace. You know, Kenyans have this image that you've seen in the media about this lady that is larger than life, rose from being, I think, Mugabe's personal secretary to an almost president. We've heard about her high lifestyle. We heard what she did in South Africa when she beat a model with a cable as well. Is that all about her, or is there more that we may not know?
I think yes, she does have a bad record. I mean, she talks and she doesn't mince her words when she attacks her enemies, and that has kind of created an image of somebody who's always out to attack people. She does have good taste, going to shop for shopping in Paris, in all kinds of expensive shops. And I remember at some point they had an altercation with some journalists who were photographing her while she was going around doing her shopping. And the shopping always she had to go to some expensive shops, very expensive shops. So people know her for a good taste in fashion. And well, some people say that a lot of things that she does, like she built an orphanage in a place called Mazoe, and she does say she takes care of orphans. There are many videos online of her talking to the orphans, taking care of children, and there are some people who are close to her who actually say that she's somebody with a very caring heart. She's taking care of some children here and there. But her rise to fame was very rapid, and it caught many people by surprise. But I think the influence of the gang of this G40 group, they looked around and they tried to find somebody whom they could give their message.
Yes.
And the only person they could see who was very close to the president at the time, remember this is a cult, and you need somebody who is very close to the leader.
Yes.
And they found Grace and they fed her their information, and then after that she got the information and ran with it.
Okay.
So you could say that she was playing a front for the G40, but unfortunately they didn't do it so
It did not work. Is this how both of you celebrated, looking at the images now on the screen? Let me start with you, Reginald, when you heard that he had resigned, or when you heard that statement?
Yes, I immediately went to, I was actually at All Saints Cathedral when I heard I was attending a funeral service. But from the moment I saw the message, trust me, whatever the pastor preached, I did not hear.
You could not believe it?
Yes, I was just scrolling up and down. I knew it was going to happen sooner than later. The previous night when he had a speech, I talked to the editor of ZBC, and he told me resignation was not part of the speech, but he will resign. But the Constitution of Zimbabwe says you have to send your resignation to the Speaker of Parliament, who reads it publicly. So he was never going to read the resignation himself, because it was going to be unconstitutional. But yes, I literally celebrated like that. We wanted to go out in the streets and celebrate that, but then we remembered what happened to Raila from the airport to town, and we thought, I think we are safer celebrating inside our houses.
Your actions might be misinterpreted.
Exactly.
Actually, was that the same for you?
Oh yes, I was with friends, and I mean, the moment, it was so unreal. We didn't even believe it at first. We said, guys, these people, they've started with their fake news. Can this really happen?
There was fake news?
Yes, I mean, people said, okay, let's wait for him to announce it himself. That's when we'll start celebrating.
Yes.
But as the news spread, and we saw it breaking news on all news channels, and we spoke to some people who were there, and they told us, yes, actually it is true that he has resigned. That's when the real celebrations began. So, yeah, we did a lot of stuff which I think we would have never done any other day. It's like a new lease of life.
Okay,
it's like
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's like something which you never thought possible. I mean, if you put yourself in the mind of a Zimbabwean, Mugabe was like the Berlin Wall.
and no wonder you see people even took off their shirts and stood on top of cars.
People
and so forth. Well,
exactly.
Before I surely take a look at some of the other big stories of the day, just a quick question for both of you. Let me start with you, Reginald. Of course, the eyes of the world have been on Zimbabwe. I'm sure you've read numerous articles, watched numerous news reports, TV reports about Zimbabwe. Is there news out there or perceptions out there about your country that you feel are very wrong?
There are two, actually. One, this notion of that we go with wheelbarrows to go buy bread is utter nonsense.
That's not the truth.
It was only 1 year in 2008.
Okay.
And after that we dollarized. So you don't need to look for a bureau in Zimbabwe. Just come in with your dollars. Definitely not Kenyan shillings, but just come in with your dollars, your rands, your yuan, your pound, and you can transact. It's an interesting scenario where you enter into a matatu, you pay your fare in dollars and get your change in rands. So if you want someone to work in your forex bureau, go get someone in Zimbabwe. There are no exchange rates from the top of their hand. Yeah, and the second one is the aspect of we've had only one president. I keep on telling people, no, this is the second president. He's just been there for too long, but we actually have had two presidents. That's mostly most of the things that people keep on coming. When you meet someone the first time, oh, you're from Zimbabwe. You guys are use wheelbarrows to take money. I'm thinking it's not true. Yeah.
Well, on national TV, you've had a chance to clarify that, and the clip will be on YouTube, so you can share it with all your friends who you think are ignorant about matters Zimbabwe.
I will do that.
And for you, Ashley, I don't know how long you've been in Kenya, but what are some of the things about our nation that remind you of back home? Any parallels that Kenyans can identify with?
Well, I find most Kenyans are very welcoming people. They're very kind, and despite all the difficulties, they do their best to work hard to make it. They are not the type of people you would find always complaining to neighbors and stuff. They try to deal with their issues internally, and I admire that very much. And sometimes they are very goal-oriented, like they find unity when it's needed, and they try to move on. But another perception which I don't like is when I hear people speak of Zimbabwe, you tell someone I'm from Zimbabwe, and the moment you say that, they give you this look like back home the people are dying on the streets every day, like you just walk into Harare and there are dead bodies everywhere.
That is not the truth.
That is not the truth at all.
Okay. Is there any similarities between our political class here? Because I'm sure you've watched our election year. Yeah. What would you say is similar or different from what you have back home?
Yeah, Kenya as a country is older than Zimbabwe. But if you look at the history of Kenya, the first two presidents, they were there for quite a while. And Zimbabwe has had at least two presidents also who've been there for quite a while. I think Kenya will be how many years now? 54? somewhere there, and Zimbabwe is only 37. So I think we are more or less following the same path. We would like to try to maybe improve on what Kenya has done. That would be our wish. We have more or less the same constitutions, but our political climate has a lot of similarities. We have different peoples from different backgrounds in Zimbabwe, just like Kenya. But we do our best always to unite as a nation and to move forward. And
okay, unite as a nation and move forward, and that's what many Zimbabweans are hoping will happen after Friday, when the former vice president is sworn in. Let's take a look at page 14 of the Daily Nation. A lot to do with Matters Zimbabwe, an editorial there. It's the chance to clean up the mess in Harare. The peaceful ouster of Zimbabwean strongman Robert Mugabe this week marks a melodramatic closure to one of the worst chapters in Africa's recent history. And of course, to get more details, you need to read that. And right next to that is, of course, the cartoon of the day. One more down to go. You can see the democracy as the way in which dictators or people who've been in office for very long are brought down. Mugabe now, his statue there in pieces, his reign over, and the cartoonist here alluding that Museveni of Uganda, Bashir of Sudan, and others could soon be brought down by democracy. Your take, of course, let us know. 22422 is our SMS line. While Charles Onyango Obo, who is a publisher of Africapedia.com and explainer of site roguechiefs.com, talks about Mugabe's fall and an African political drama in Zimbabwe. If I can just read a paragraph. On Tuesday, Mugabe's reign ended. He resigned. Extraordinary as Mugabe's end was, it probably will not be the most enduring story about this episode. Rather, it will be about how Zimbabweans carried themselves. We've rarely seen anything like this. And I know I needed to wind up, but Reginald, the manner in which Zimbabwe conducted itself, very strange from the point of, I guess, Kenyans, where we are known to politically agitate to a point where if we want a leader out, we'll make it very clear we can go and march outside State House, whatever it takes. But we saw Zimbabweans very willing to go back home and wait to hear how the political leaders will handle that. And some are calling it un-African. How would you? What is it about the character of Zimbabweans that allows them to be so patient?
Naturally, Zimbabweans are peaceful and they are peace-loving. So even when you find when they would go out in the streets to protest, and they would normally actually be peaceful.
Okay.
But to draw a parallel, as you're saying, with Kenya, if you notice something, there was no police or military or whatever presence trying to stop the demonstrators.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although that has been there in the past.
If in the past it's been there, but if you notice, they will throw the tear gas and they will run away.
Who will run away?
The Zimbabwean people would run away. They would not now pick stones and try and fight.
Okay.
As in, we'll make our point. When force is met, you would say, okay, so it's time for me to go home, and you go home. Okay.
Yeah. Do you see, and maybe actually this could be for you, a question that's come up. Do you see anyone below the age of 40 right now in the Zimbabwean political class that could one day rise to be president? Anyone showing potential? Apart Reginald is saying himself, but you've been away for long. You need to go back and get to the grassroots.
We have an opposition MP who is now actually one of the vice presidents. Nelson Chamisa. He's not yet 40.
Okay.
He's turning 40 next year. We've had moments in Parliament where he has had some debates with Mnangagwa. They didn't really seem like very violent kind of debates. They were very friendly. And people would always look forward to the time when Nelson Chamisa would ask a question to Mnangagwa. He didn't know that he was going to be the next president. Maybe he knew, but not with certainty. So I think there are a number of MPs and people who are vying for parliamentary seats who I think in the future they may pick up the baton and take the nation forward. We also have some very vibrant youths like Fazema Here. Yeah, she's very vibrant and she's very vocal.
When I got to meet you, you mentioned that at some point you carried out 1 or 2 demos in Nairobi against what was happening. Just tell us briefly about that.
Yeah, we decided to stand in solidarity, so we went to the stanchart at whose statue? That Tomboya statue?
Tomboya.
Yeah. So
the CBD.
Yeah. So we
When
had
was that?
September last year.
September last year.
Okay.
Under hashtag This Flag Kenya.
Yes, of course. Remember that campaign from last year.
Exactly. So we put on our T-shirts, we went there, we denounced what was going on. We had tried to get a permit to do it, but the police would not give us the permit, so we used the proxy. I forgot the name of the NGO, who was also doing something there. So they gave us the first 41 hours of their session. When we were done, we wrapped up and we left. We would have loved to do it more open at the embassy, but as you said, Mugabe personified the system, so the embassy staff would be literally scared to allow us to do anything that would be perceived back home as anti-government.
Exactly.
So we did that, and we said at least we played our part to show the world. We sent petitions around to stop funding a corrupt Zimbabwean government, because we say when you fund a corrupt Zimbabwean government, corruption is not money eating. Corruption equals to murder, because when a person goes to the hospital and doesn't get that medicine, that's the cost of corruption. When a kid goes to school and finds no textbooks, that's the cost of corruption. So we've been fighting it online, we've been fighting it out in the streets as much as we have been far away from home. But given an opportunity, as we said, I think there's a generation that is rising up that is saying enough is enough.
Okay. And
we are willing to now to met it out.
Okay. So far away from home, but still playing their part. Reginald Kazutu, Ashley Honzeri, thank you so much for finding time to be here with us. I guess we just have to wait and see what will happen tomorrow. Now, all eyes back on Zimbabwe. All those headlines, again, some of those misconceptions about your country, you probably will still be seeing a bit of that in the coming days. Thank you.